Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2-on-1 Fast Break podcast. This is our special NCAA tournament edition. I'm joined by our site handicapper, Dan Erda. Fresh off a Las Vegas trip, I'm sure you were in contact with all your Vegas insiders. Is that what you're doing over there, Dan?
I was. That's why I was there. They told me this whole tournament, you might not know this, is actually all rigged.
Yeah.
Like, they already know who's going to win the whole thing. And now, using my contacts, I know.
Oh, that's good.
It's Dayton.
It's Dayton.
Yeah.
I actually like Dayton. We're going to talk about Dayton a little more than you might have expected.
I was going to bring them up too later, so we might actually have an agreement in this conversation.
Oh, that'll be an unusual thing for us to agree on something.
Usually we disagree, and I end up
And then
right.
you win. Yeah. So I like that we could be on the same side of a potential wager down the road here. So we're going to go through our brackets, talk about each region, who we like to advance out of that region, a team that could surprise, and then a potential round 2 upset. Obviously, the first round
I can't
games.
stand it. They got to call that round 1.
It's ridiculous. They just call them. I mean, they're the play-in games.
Exactly.
Just call them that, and they thought that there was the stigma associated with calling them play-in games. So
there is a stigma. It shows that they weren't good enough to get a bid on their own, which deserves a stigma.
Hey, Tennessee, do you want to not be in the tournament at all, or do you want to play in the playing game? I think they'll play in the playing game. I think they'll be okay with that. So, yeah, I hate that. But anyway, the opening round games that take place Saturday and Sunday, they are technically the second round. But if we call them round 1 games, you know why. Don't try to correct us on it. We know what it is.
Yes.
All right, so we'll start out in the South. Florida is the number 1 seed in that. Kansas, who we've been rooting for all season because of our futures bet, they're the number 2 seed in that region.
See, a couple of months ago, it was like 6-7 months ago, I was sitting at work on Twitter, which is what I usually do at work, and
Naturally.
and I got a text. Or I started to see that was when the first word came out that Andrew Wiggins was committing to Kansas, and all the books adjusted right away, and they went from plus 2,500 down to like plus 600. And I noticed that one of the few benefits of having a really crappy local book that's not offshore or anything is they're very slow to readjust lines.
Yes.
So I called Sean up. We each put on. I put 25. He put $20 on to win it all. So we're looking good to win.
We put 1 unit each on it.
1 unit each, and we're looking good to win. What we like 1,500?
Yeah. And we're certainly going to be hedging
Absolutely.
as we go along because that's the smart play in this situation with
Absolutely.
all the value propositions on our side. Yeah, so I do like that. The Embiid injury certainly puts a little bit of a damper on our plans.
Just gotta hope they can get by Eastern Kentucky without him.
Yeah.
And then you gotta hope he's back.
But he's out. He's definitely out for the first weekend here. They play, as you mentioned, Eastern Kentucky. Obviously, I'm not worried about that. They're 15-point favorites in that game. But the New Mexico game, which is their potential second game,
That could be tough.
that could be
New Mexico is a good team.
They are good. So I am a little worried there. But we'll see how that goes. So in the South, let's talk about who you like to advance and get to the Final Four out of the South region.
Now here's the thing. I'm not the guy who's going to pull some crazy team out of the hat and claim that they're going to go far. My picks aren't really going to be exciting. I think it's going to take pretty much Kansas, or else Florida's going to go. So Florida is going to, I think, the most likely team to come out of that region.
All right, I agree with you. Kansas is the only team that has the talent to match up with them, but with one of their 2 best players being injured, and he's supposed to be back by the second weekend of the tournament, but you don't know what kind of shape he's going to be in and whether or not he'll be at 100%. So it's tough to ride with the team in that situation.
Also, it's hard to do it on offense because when Embiid's in the game and when he's not, the offense goes at a completely different pace. They're much faster without him.
Yeah.
When Wiggins, it's his job to do all the creating. And it's just weird in the middle of the tournament to be like, okay, the thing you did the first 2 games, now you have to change back to what we did a month and a half ago.
Completely shift gears like that. It's not the ideal situation for a team.
I just want to get into an Elite 8 game against Florida, and then I'll start hedging. If they're out before there, I'm just losing my unit.
I think I'm starting with Syracuse, and because I feel like Kansas.
Who says Syracuse is going to be there?
Well, I do.
Right.
So we talk about that, but just the fact that I still think Kansas would be favored if they potentially played Syracuse in the would that be Sweet 16?
So you can take the money line.
I think I can. No, I would actually take Syracuse for the points.
Oh, you take the points and try to get ahead.
For a middle.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah, hope for a middle there. So, all right. So you like Florida. I like Florida. I think pretty much most of the country likes Florida coming out of that region. Not the strongest region. what team do you think could surprise and maybe go a little further than people expect?
We spoiled this answer earlier. Of all the teams in this region, I like Dayton.
I also like Dayton. I'm probably not going to have the balls to go ahead and put them as beating Ohio State in my brackets, but I do like them +6 a lot.
Don't have the balls. Have the balls to pick them beating Ohio State. Have the balls to pick them Syracuse in round 2.
No, they're not going to beat Syracuse. I don't see that happening. Syracuse is built for the tournament. They have that matchup zone that teams that haven't played them all season they go up against, and they really don't know what to do.
Yeah,
Dayton is an excellent 3-point shooting
team.
Yeah,
you hit your jump shots, you can beat them.
Yeah, I mean, Dayton is an excellent 3-point shooting team. So they have the tools to beat them, but I don't know. Getting past upsetting Ohio State and then Cuse, that's a tall order for a team that has been up and down all season like the Flyers have. But I do like them a lot +6 in that opening game against Ohio State. Ohio State, they're a strong defensive team, but that's pretty much it. So even if Ohio State does win, I think it's going to be a close one.
I agree.
All right, so that's your team to surprise. What about a round 1 upset? Are you sticking with Dayton, or is there anything else that you see there that potential round 1 upset?
My call for the round 1 upset would be Dayton. I don't see anything in the 2-5 game. I do think VCU wins that one. And, nothing else. Let's hope Eastern Kentucky doesn't beat Kansas.
Yeah, let's really... I don't see that happening.
And I don't consider any 8-9 games or anything like that. I don't even consider them upsets. So, I'm going to go with Dayton as my upset pick for the South.
Okay. Eastern Kentucky's the Hilltoppers, right?
Is that their name?
I think that's it.
It's a wonderful mascot.
Yeah. All right, so that's the South. Let's move on to the East, and that is a very interesting reason, probably the toughest one to call, because there's so many close games that are going to be happening in that East, it looks like. So we'll start off with who's coming out of the East in your mind.
Man, how many teams in this bracket could be out in round 3 or in the Elite 8?
It's really, those Sweet 16 games are battles. And there's a couple of the second round, the round of 32 games that are really tough too.
Now, every year a team becomes like everyone's darling because they played really well leading up to the tournament and seem to be coming together at the right time. This year it's Michigan State, and I really don't like to go with that team, but I do see them making the Final Four. I see them coming out of the East barely over Virginia.
Okay, here's my reasoning with my pick. I think Virginia and Michigan State are so even. That's basically a coin flip game if those two teams meet in the Sweet 16 there. That I'm going to pencil Villanova in to the Final Four.
I would love it.
Because I feel like you go with either Virginia or Michigan State, there's pretty much a 50-50 proposition that they're going to lose to each other in the Sweet 16. Whereas Villanova, I feel much more confident beating Iowa State in their potential Sweet 16 matchup. And then you kind of can, you're more sure of having that Elite 8 team alive when you get that far.
Iowa State's another really weird team. UNC, all these teams are really weird in that they can...
Cincinnati is like an elite... They're one of the best defensive teams in the nation.
Yeah.
And, that's pretty much what... You either have to have a point guard who gets hot at the right time, like Kemba Walker, and carry your team through the tournament, or if you're a strong defensive team, you're going to be in every game, regardless of who you play. And that's Cincinnati. And then they have Sean Kilpatrick, who's one of the best scorers in the nation, and he's one of those guys that could really put his team on his back and make a good tournament run. So, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Cincinnati beat Michigan State, honestly. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Michigan State got to the final.
Yeah.
So the East, who knows?
The East bracket is very exciting. I am going to be the sucker and pick Michigan State, and I love your pick of Villanova.
I do too. As a Villanova alum,
we do have a homer alert here.
They're a 2 seed.
He did attend the school.
It's not like I'm saying the 7 seed's going to go all the way.
Look at this. Both of our alums are in this bracket. I do not have the pride to pick Delaware to go to the Final Four here.
You don't believe in Jarvis Threat and company? Devon Usher?
Here's the thing. I was really ready to pick Delaware to make a great first-round upset.
They're a pretty good team.
They have an incredible backcourt.
Yeah.
But it's just a terrible, terrible draw for them.
I know we were talking about this before they released the matchups, and we're saying, who's a 3 or 4 seed?
Give them Cuse. Give them Syracuse.
Yeah, like Syracuse, Creighton, UNC. If UNC had been a little higher, I mean, you never know what these teams are going to be played out. There's teams that Delaware could beat. They only lost by 4 to Villanova in the Pavilion this year. Villanova didn't lose a game in the Pavilion.
And they never lose games in the Pavilion.
Yeah, they never do. Delaware only lost to them by 4 earlier this season. They can beat some teams. I just don't think Michigan State's going to.
Yeah, it was a bad draw. There's no theory that they purposely don't put the small teams that bettors like to bet on against the bigger teams that people think are going to be overvalued.
That's what your contacts told you this.
Yes, my contacts did tell me this.
Right, yeah. Okay. So we'll. All right. So you're going Michigan State. I'm going Villanova. What about a team that could surprise?
As much as I'd love to say the Blue Hens of the University of Delaware, I cannot do so. I also don't like Harvard. Everyone loves Harvard as their 12-5 upset this year.
Yep.
I don't. I like Cincinnati. We're going to do a couple against the spread plays later, and Cincinnati is actually one of my bigger ones.
Yep.
As far as an upset in this round, I guess the best thing I could see, or the thing I could see happening would be, I could see Providence giving UNC a really good battle.
That's mine as well. UNC, just a team that has 0 outside shooting. They're one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the country. So when you talk about close games in the tournament, that's something that usually teams can make a run. They start hitting some shots, and they get going that way. Just they have to work so hard on offense for everything.
They really do.
Providence.
They've lost to some bad teams this year, too.
Yeah, they're just so up and down, and they seem to be putting it together. They had that nice winning streak towards the end of the regular season, but Providence is a good squad, and it's only a 4-point line. I could definitely see Providence taking that one.
Well, we agree on both of our upset teams.
Yeah,
so
we
far.
both like the 11 seed so far. Actually, I like one more, which we'll get to. So let's move on to the West, and the 1 seed in that region being Arizona, the 2 seed Wisconsin. So who do you like coming out of the West?
I have Arizona. Arizona could win the championship, and I wouldn't be surprised. They're a very deep squad, a very talented squad. And they really don't have anyone in the way. On one hand, Creighton could beat them. On another hand, Creighton could get upset in the 3rd round. So
yeah, Creighton just all offense. They're the highest offensively rated team in the country by the metrics. I mean, obviously, they have Doug McDermott, who's the probable player of the year in college basketball this season.
Huge McDermott guy.
He's a lights-out shooter. Might have a better pro career than Kyle Korver in a kind of similar role, who's just set the record this season for most consecutive threes in games. That tells you what his shooting prowess is.
Yeah, and I actually think he's a little bit more Dirk than Korver.
He is more. He does have more. He has more to his game than Korver does.
Correct.
He's a little bit bigger.
And Korver's had a great career. Nothing
Right.
wrong with him. But he just shoots threes.
Yeah, I just made the comparison because obviously
they went to Creighton.
Korver also a Creighton guy who's had a lot of success in a similar role.
They're also both white, which is funny because this happens. Everyone just wants to compare McDermott to other white guys. They talk about Jimmer and they talk about Adam Morrison, and I actually think that he's falling in people's draft projections because of that.
Yeah, I think he'd be a nice deal for somebody in the late lottery. I was just making a comparison to a fellow Creighton Blue Jay.
Creighton?
I mean, name another Creighton guy that's made it. You can't. So you got to go Korver.
I guess you do.
And, I saw them. They're obviously in the Big East. I saw a couple games with them in Villanova this year. And him and they have another big guy, Ethan Raggy, who hit 8 threes in a game against Villanova earlier this season. They just blitzed Nova in both games.
That was crazy. They couldn't miss either game.
No. And if they get hot, they can beat any team in the country. But it's hard to see them being hot for 4 or 5
Exactly. It's hard for teams that rely on outside shooting to go that far into the tournament because one game off and they're going to be knocked off against a quality opponent.
I think you said Arizona far and away. I agree with you. I just want to point out, they've had one of their best players out all season. Brandon Ashley got hurt about a third of the way through the season. Probably their 2nd or 3rd best player, and they're still, if not the best team in the country, probably 2nd best behind Florida. And that's pretty remarkable what they have put together there.
They're definitely poised to make a run here.
Yeah, they're the best defensive team in the nation. I don't see any holes in their game from top to bottom. They got some veterans. They got the young freshman Aaron Gordon. So a nice mix of experience. They got good inside-outside game. They pretty much got it all. So I like them to advance out of the West as well. How about a team that could surprise? What do you like?
Now, I don't know if we're limiting this to picking a lower seed to win a game.
No, it could be a 5 or like a 3 seed going far, whatever. somebody outplaying their seed.
I could see Baylor making a run.
Okay.
I've watched Baylor a lot. They're incredibly frustrating. I've lost a lot of money line parlays because they couldn't even win as a 6-point home favorite on their big Saturday home games that they had. But that team has so much athleticism. They can rebound with anybody. You see, if they win game 1 against Nebraska, which I do think they should, they play Creighton. And Creighton is exactly the kind of team they can beat because they're shooters. So if they're not making their shots, Baylor's going to get all the boards, move in transition, etc., etc. Then after that, they'd be playing whether it be Oregon or Wisconsin or someone like that. They could beat any of these teams. So I would not be shocked to see Baylor in the Elite Eight. They could lose in round 1 or 2 or whatever we're going to call it, but that team is athletic enough to make a run.
Yeah, that whole bottom half of the West bracket is pretty much a crapshoot. Creighton, Creighton, I think we've talked that in the ground. Like, you just don't know from game to game how they're going to do because they rely so heavily on the outside shot. So yeah, I can see Baylor advancing past there. And then in the 7-2 game, or what should be the 7-2 game in my mind, I really like Oregon. They're an elite offensive team. They run the pace up, which is going to be the counter opposite of what Wisconsin likes to do. Wisconsin, obviously, with that Bo Ryan offense, known to frustrate teams, goes uber slow, take every shot, every possession they shoot with about 2 or 3 seconds left on the shot clock. Just make teams get frustrated and make dumb mistakes. But Oregon really pushes the pace. I think that if they get a lead on Wisconsin, they could really get the Badgers out of their game. And so that's a team I could potentially see in the Elite Eight, honestly, as a 7th seed.
Yeah, I don't think I even realized how crazy the West bracket is. They have a lot of those teams, a lot of those kinds of teams.
Like Oklahoma, good squad. You kind of never know what you're going to get with.
I have them losing in the first game.
Well, that's your upset.
Yeah, but I think North Dakota State wins that game, but then I don't think they do anything else.
We were talking about a surprise, so all right. So round 1 upset, you like North Dakota State?
Yes, I do.
Reasoning?
Because I have to pick 112-5 underdog, and this is why. No, Oklahoma.
Because that's what you guys in Vegas told you.
Exactly. No, Oklahoma is just an inconsistent team. Keep in mind, I'm not the basketball guru. I don't watch every game, but I have watched Oklahoma a couple of times when they were on the channels that I do get, and I was never overly impressed. And this is a classic game where North Dakota State's just going to play David-style basketball and just go for it, and I think they could absolutely win the game. The spread shows that it's going to be a pretty close game.
Yeah, they're a 12 seed, but they're actually one of the best offensive teams in the country. They have they're a top 25 offense, and they're rated around one of the top 60 teams.
I think the Dakota teams always are real sneaky. They always end up with really unathletic dudes who shoot.
Was that Nate Walters?
Nate Walters,
on the Bucks now. He was one of those Dakota guys. Yeah, they always have some guys who can put the ball in the basket. That's for sure. So I don't know what they're doing up there in the Dakotas, but they're doing it. They're doing all right. All right, so that's the West. Finally, the last region, the Midwest. Wichita State got what many people think is the unfortunate draw, getting the number 1 seed as an undefeated team at 34-0, but a pretty stacked bracket with Michigan at 2, Duke at 3, and Louisville at 4, which in my mind was the most surprising seeding of the entire tournament, is giving Louisville a 4 seed.
Yeah, it's crazy. Louisville's not only beating teams, they're destroying teams right now.
Beat Rutgers by 61.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Rutgers isn't awful. They're not a good team, but they were like in the middle of the AAC this year. And they beat them by 61. It's crazy.
And here's one hint. This is what my sources in Vegas told me. Not really. This is actually what Reading told me. But Louisville in round 1 plays Manhattan. Manhattan's coach is...
I can confirm that.
Yeah,
it's still in the bracket.
Manhattan's coach is a disciple of Rick Pitino.
A disciple of Rick Pitino.
I don't pronounce words correctly. It's a thing I do. But before you go laying the points and think Louisville crushes everyone, this is a lock. Gotta think, Pitino's been around the game a lot. He's a classy dude. He might not want to completely show up a guy who used to study under him.
A little respect for his protege.
Absolutely.
He's not going to run up the score.
And they'll have kind of a mutual agreement. Like, look, we know you're not going to win the game. Don't try to win the game. As long as you do that, we're not going to embarrass you. We'll make you have a good showing.
So it's a 10-point game with a few minutes left. Don't start the foul and stuff, and we won't run it up. Is that what you're saying here?
I do, because my gut when I looked at the line was like Louisville under 20. I'm going to pound it. And then I learned this little factoid, and I'm like, Patino might throw his old buddy a little bone here, and
Just a little respect between former colleagues, you know.
exactly.
So, all right, but keeping that in mind, who do you like coming out of the Midwest?
Louisville.
You like Louisville.
I do.
So you think they're going to ease their way past that round one matchup and then just storm the field?
I do, and it's amazing how little respect a team that went to the Final Four last year and went undefeated this year gets.
And lost to Louisville by 4 points in the tournament last year.
Yeah.
Louisville's not as good as they were last year. They lost a couple guys. So Wichita State, pretty much the exact same team, and they lost to them by 4 last year in the tournament. And now everybody's on Louisville still.
I'll tell you something.
Despite the fact Wichita State hasn't lost a game all year.
Round 2, Wichita, Kentucky would be a really good game.
And that's another thing people are saying. Like, they by far got the hardest 8-9 draw.
Oh, yeah.
Kentucky being the 8 seed they would have to play.
Yeah.
Then they have what many people would think Louisville or Michigan State is the hardest 4 draw. And it's just really a tough road for them to go through.
But watch them do. Watch them go all the way.
I hope they do.
They got the nobody. Has a 34-0 team ever had the nobody believes in us theory behind them?
They're definitely the least respected undefeated team ever in an NCAA tournament. I feel confident saying that.
I think that's I'm not going to. No confirmation, but I think it's a safe bet.
I don't think people thought John Wooden's team was going to struggle against the 8 seed when they went into the tournament undefeated.
I would agree with that.
All right, so you like Louisville. Man, I really want to go with Wichita, but Louisville's so good.
Wichita has to overcome so many hurdles just to get there.
I mean, yeah, just the fact that they have to play Kentucky in that second game, which that's going to be tough because they don't have anybody that can physically match up with Julius Randle down low. So he's going to dominate in that game, and it's just going to be up to them to have a complete team effort to overcome Kentucky.
As far as you know, is there any chance of Mitch McGarry coming back for this tournament?
Not that I've heard.
Okay.
I don't think that's a possibility. And even if he did, he hasn't played in 3 months.
Right.
So it'd be really tough for him to make an impact. So I think we both like Louisville. Yeah, I'm going with Louisville. I think Russ Smith is just playing as well as any guard in the country. They got Montrell Harris, I think is his name, the big guy. I think I'm screwing up his last name.
It's okay.
His first name's Montrell or something. Has a Z in there. It's a pretty cool name, and he's a really good player. I've watched him a few times this season because they're in the same conference as Temple. So I've got to see a few of their games. But yeah, I like Louisville as well. I mean, obviously they have the pedigree with Pitino and a lot of the guys back from last year's championship team. So I'm going them. What about a team that could surprise in the Midwest?
Well, I don't see any of the lower seeds making a run deep into this bracket because there's just too many powers in this one. I think Tennessee wins the playing game and then beats UMass in round 1.
I agree. I don't necessarily think it's going to be Tennessee. I think Iowa could also win that game.
I think whoever wins that game beats UMass in round 1.
Whoever wins that game is going to beat UMass. I don't know how UMass got a 6 seed.
That's crazy.
They were the 6th seed in the Atlantic 10 this year. And the Atlantic 10 is a good conference. It really is. They have quite a few teams. I think they have 6 teams in the tournament. But if you're the 6th team in your conference, that means you're not one of the best 24 teams in the nation.
I made some of my biggest bets this year betting against UMass when UMass was not at home. And
yeah,
they're not on the road here. They're not like in another team's arena, but they're also not home.
They're not at home.
Exactly.
Right. So
I don't like that team at all. I'm going to bet against them. It's just a matter of who they're playing, and I think they're out in round 1 or 2.
And also, Tennessee and Iowa are both really good teams. And the theory in the NCAA circles right now is that the selection committee was putting teams that didn't really deserve to be in the playing game, they were putting them there to make the playing games more television friendly, to draw more viewers, to make them more competitive games that people wanted to watch.
You're not enjoying this Albany Mount St. Mary game that we have on right now as we speak?
I was enjoying it, actually.
It's a 1-point game right now.
Mount St. Mary's was down something like 13-0 to start the game.
It was like 23-5.
Yeah, and then they stormed back, and it's really been a good game. Yeah.
I actually disagree with that mindset. I'd love to see 2 more no-names fighting tooth and nail just for the chance to lose by 20 in the first round.
Yeah. So you think all 4 playing games should be potential 16 teams?
I do. I think teams like Iowa and Tennessee, they either make it on their own merit and are in or are out.
I don't see how Tennessee didn't make it. I think it'd be more realistic to have them as the 6th seed and
UMass
as the playing game.
I don't disagree, but the 12 losses are ugly.
Yeah, I mean that's true, but they had a really tough schedule. They played a really hard out of conference schedule, and then their conference was pretty good this year.
Yeah.
And it's just I don't know. I didn't think they deserved to be in a playing game. So team that could surprise in this region, I don't really have anybody. Honestly, I think it's pretty much chalk aside from Louisville, which might as well be chalk because everybody has them. Texas, they're not. I mean, they could easily lose to Arizona State, so I don't see them doing anything. Michigan and Duke. I think either of those teams.
Yeah, I agree.
They have to play each other. One of them is going to win, but I think whoever comes out of Louisville, Wichita State in that Sweet 16, I think they're going to easily beat whoever comes out of the Duke Michigan game. And then I don't know. St. Louis has just really been struggling offensively. They haven't played well at all to the second half of the season. They're a really good defensive team, but their offensive metrics is, I think, the worst out of the entire tournament field, excluding the 16 seed teams. I think they're the worst offensive team in the field. So I can't see them doing anything. So I don't have anything as far as a surprise.
There's no reason to pick up this. People get so upset happy that they end up with a screwed up bracket just because they want to be the one guy who picks the crazy upset.
Yeah, they pick all the 12 seeds, and then when one of the 4 12 seeds wins, they're like, oh yeah, I had North Dakota State, and I said it on my friend's podcast, and I'm really good at picking games.
they always do say that at the end. They say, and I'm really good at picking games.
Now, but they lost the other 3 12 seed games, but they don't bring that part up. They just bring the one they got right in.
And when you fill your bracket, it's so easy to get caught up in picking all crazy teams. Basically, it lies in picking 3 of the 4 Final Four teams correct and picking the champion correct. If you do that, you're in good shape. It doesn't matter. You could have. I did have Florida Gulf Coast winning not 1 but 2 games last year in my bracket, but I finished 8th in my league of 12 because none of my Final Four picks were any good.
Probably because you had another 14 seed also going to Sweet 16.
Darn North Dakota State.
Yep. But all right, so that's all the regions. Real quick, who do you like winning it all?
This is in pencil. I have not filled out my bracket on PhillyFastBreak.com, which you all should do before the games start.
I'm giving away money.
He's giving away free money
to enter, and you win money if you win.
But right now, in pencil, that can easily be erased, I have Florida as the national champion.
All right, I'm going Arizona, and Florida-Arizona is my title game. Is that your title game?
Florida-Louisville is my... Yes.
All right. So we'll see what happens there.
And we both hope that Kansas proves us wrong.
I would love that. All right, so that's the bracket. As far as the opening round games, betting against the spread, you said you have a few picks for people out there. What do you like?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm here for. I'm not the guy who's going to sit here and talk about college basketball teams for an hour, but I do know some spread.
But you'll do it for a half hour.
I will do it for a half hour, and I'll give you some picks. We're going to do 5 plays. We'll go through them quickly. First one is a money line parlay that ends up right around even money. It's a Pitt-Oregon money line parlay for round 1.
Love it. Colorado's, if you don't know, Colorado's leading scorer, Dinwiddie, just got hurt. They're playing Pittsburgh.
And he was hurt a couple games this year, and the team is not the same without him.
He's their whole team, pretty much, and he's out. So even if you don't bet on it, if you don't look at the spread, I mean, it's a 5.5 point spread, but even if you think, oh, well, that's not too high, just put Pittsburgh advancing in your bracket.
Yes, I agree.
And I already talked about I like Oregon a lot.
And we do have a friend who's a Pitt alum, so I've watched a lot of Pitt. They could lose to anybody at any time, but I think in this particular matchup, they're in very good shape to win.
They got a really good draw getting Colorado with their best player out.
Yes.
All right, and I said I love Oregon, so I like that play a lot.
Play number 2 is Cincinnati, minus 2.5. We discussed the defense that they play. Harvard is the sexy 12 pick that a lot of people seem to be jumping on. I don't see it hitting. I think Cincinnati wins this game rather easily. And another thing, aside from the fact that we talked about Kilpatrick and we talked about their defense and how they play that very well, there's also a lot of rumblings that Tommy Amaker is going to take a head coaching job at Boston College. And the last thing you want in going into
rumblings.
You don't want any going into a bowl season or going into anything like this is you don't want to question your head coach's commitment to the school.
Yeah.
Now, Amaker's a Harvard guy, he always has been, but that definitely affects players. It gets in their head a little bit. And just on the psychological and just in terms of talent, I think Cincinnati is going to win this game. It might be a little bit close to the end, but
2.5 small spread.
2.5 small spread. Anything under 3, I'm comfortable with if I think the team's going to win, because I always think that free throws are going to put them over at the end.
Yeah, they're going to foul.
That does hurt you sometimes, if there could be a 1 or 2 point game. I think Cincinnati wins this game easy.
I agree. Hey, everybody out there that loves Louisville, Cincinnati beat Louisville this season. They're also a really good team.
North Dakota State plus 3.5. I like them outright.
Okay, and we've discussed your love for North Dakota State.
Yes, we have.
So we can go on.
New Mexico State University plus 7. I think that's too many points. I'm not sure I see them winning the game. They play San Diego State, who
I had to find that. Yeah.
You know what's crazy is, remember a couple months ago, San Diego State was like a game away from being the 1 seed in the country?
Was it this year they played on the air carrier and all the shots? Or was it last year?
I don't remember.
I remember it was either this year or last year. San Diego State, I think they played Michigan State, and it was a really windy day, and they were playing on the air carrier for one of those Armed Forces games at the beginning of the season, and both teams shot under 50% from the free throw line because every shot the ball was just getting blown away from the basket. You could literally tell how the wind would take shots.
And I like New Mexico.
Just a fun remembrance of San Diego State for me.
Have you seen New Mexico State center?
Yeah, that's the 7'5" guy.
7'5",
right?
like 260 pounds.
Yeah, he's like partially has giganticism, which is a real thing.
Yes.
And I think he's part giant.
Yes, like George Mirison.
Yes.
And you know what? It's funny. It sucks because his younger brother didn't quite get his gift in height. He's only 7'2".
Oh.
And he's a freshman on the team.
So they really have the Twin Towers there.
I like them to cover the 7 points there. And my final play, this is my favorite in the first slate of games, whatever round you like to call it. My favorite play is Mercer plus 13.
Mercer plus 13.
This is
Duke. I agree. Duke.
This is going to be a game. This is going to be a basketball game.
Duke's a terrible defensive team.
Yes, they absolutely are.
Teams can score against them, and I think anybody they play, they're not going to blow people out just because they can't stop anybody.
And Mercer starts 5 seniors, so they're not going to have any guys who get on the court and start having jitters and start getting scared. They have 5 seniors. This is their moment, their last moment probably ever as basketball players, unless they want to go play in like some crazy European city. But
make millions of dollars.
No, I'm saying they're not. I'm saying they're not even good enough to play in like the big European towns.
All right.
But they're seniors. They've been there before. They're really going to bring it. This is going to be a close game. This kind of reminds me of the Duke-Lehigh matchup a little bit.
Yeah, that was it.
Of course, they don't have a guy. I wrote this down. I forgot. And Mercer does have one guy who's really, really good. He's going to score 20 or more. Kind of the way that C.J. McCollum completely destroyed them that year.
Maybe he'll get to play in a good European city.
Maybe he does. Maybe he can play in like Israel or something.
All right. the Tel Aviv in the Maccabi League.
He can join whatever team Craig Brackens and Darius Sungel are on there.
All right.
I like them a lot. I think that game is actually going to be a close game. I'd be mildly shocked if they won outright, but not completely surprised.
And 13 is a lot of points.
Yes.
So, and obviously the line's probably boosted up a little bit by the Duke value.
Absolutely.
For the public bettors out there. All right, so those are your plays, and we discussed the bracket. So thanks for joining us, Dan, and good luck to everybody out there with your picks this week, and enjoy the games.
Enjoy, guys.